Have you ever been scrolling through your feed and you get that kind of weird feeling that it's just a little too perfect, almost like it knows you better than you know yourself? Well, it turns out those personalized feeds are doing way more than just serving you content you'll like. They're actually silently building these invisible walls all around your world. And this quote right here, man, it just hits the nail on the head. See, the goal for most platforms isn't really to make us smarter or more enlightened. Nope, it's to keep our eyes glued to the screen. And that creates this huge conflict, right? Because what keeps us entertained isn't always what keeps us informed. So, this leads us to this big idea called the filter bubble. The term was coined by internet activist Eli Pariser, and it's basically our own little personal universe of information, perfectly tailored for us by algorithms. It's super cozy in there, very comfortable, but it's also incredibly isolating. And the craziest part is, most of the time, we don't even realize it's happening.
I love this analogy. Think about our relationship with these algorithms like limerence, that intoxicating, head-over-heels stage of falling in love. Everything seems perfect, you totally ignore any red flags, and your critical judgment just kind of goes on vacation. Personalized content does the same thing. It feels so good, so right, that we just stop questioning what we're being shown or what we're not being shown.
Okay, so how exactly are these digital walls being built in the first place? It's not magic, that's for sure. It's a process, and it all starts with data. And, maybe surprisingly, with our very own human biases. The main ingredient here is something called algorithmic bias. And listen, this isn't about some evil programmer in a dark room trying to manipulate everybody. It's usually just an unintentional side effect of the data that we feed the machines. An algorithm is kind of like a mirror. It can only reflect the patterns and prejudices that are already there in the data. So here's the basic idea. You've got your inputs, that's the data, which get processed to create an output. Simple enough. But if that input data is already skewed by human biases, guess what? The output is going to be skewed too. You've heard the saying garbage in, garbage out, right? Well, this is more like bias in, bias out. And check out this wild, real-world example. Amazon built an AI tool to help with hiring, but they trained it on a decade's worth of resumes, which were mostly from men. So what did the AI learn? It taught itself that male candidates were preferable. It even started penalizing resumes that just had the word women's in them. Now, Amazon scrapped the tool, of course, but it's such a powerful lesson in how easily our own historical biases get baked right into our technology. And all of this has led to this really powerful and, let's be honest, pretty scary story that we tell ourselves about our online lives. We've all heard this, right? This idea that social media is just tearing us apart, pushing us into our own little ideological corners, and making us all hate each other. It's a really powerful and, frankly, terrifying thought. And this narrative is so compelling because on some level it feels true, doesn't it? This idea that we're all just stuck in our own little ideological prisons, only ever seeing things that confirm what we already believe and completely cut off from anyone who thinks differently.
But, like a lot of really compelling stories, the full picture is, well, it's a lot more complicated. Researchers have been digging deep into this, and what they're finding are some pretty surprising cracks in those bubble walls.
So we have to stop and ask ourselves, is this super dramatic picture of us being trapped by algorithms, is that really the whole story? Is that what's actually happening to most of us? Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. When you put the popular beliefs side by side with what researchers are actually finding, a much more nuanced picture starts to emerge. The idea that everyone is trapped? Turns out that effect is probably overstated for most people. That we never see opposing views? Actually, most people are exposed to a pretty diverse range of sources. And blaming it all on the algorithms? Well, it turns out our own choices play a massive, massive role. And get this, check out this number. One study found that only about 8% of people are in a true news echo chamber. 8%! So while these echo chambers are absolutely a real problem for a small group, they are not the reality for the vast majority of people. And this isn't just one study. A huge review by the Royal Society, they looked at tons of research. They basically backed us all up. Very few people are living in these completely sealed-off online bubbles. And here is the real kicker. Our own choices, who we decide to follow, what we click on, that often creates a stronger filter than any algorithm does. So, if most of us aren't hopelessly trapped, does that mean we're off the hook? Can we just relax? Not exactly. The threat isn't a solid wall. It's more like a distorting fog. The dangers are more subtle, but believe me, they are just as real. So maybe we've been asking the wrong question all along.
Maybe the real danger isn't that we'll never see an opposing view. Maybe it's that the algorithms, because they're designed for engagement, end up amplifying the most extreme and loudest voices. Or that a small but very active minority can make online spaces feel incredibly hostile. Or maybe it's that the constant flood of information is just making it harder for us to think deeply about, well, anything.
And this gets to a really key insight from UCLA psychologist Patricia Greenfield. All the constant switching between apps and tabs and notifications, that media multitasking that basically defines our online lives, it comes with a cognitive cost. It keeps our brains at a surface level, and that prevents us from doing the kind of deep thinking and analysis that real understanding actually requires.
Now, I know this might all sound a bit grim, but here's the good news. We are not helpless in all of this. Not at all. Understanding how these systems work is the absolute first step toward taking back control of our own information diets.
So what can you actually do about it? Okay, 4 things. First, just acknowledge your own biases. Recognize that your preferences and your clicks are part of the system. Second, change your mindset. Instead of trying to win arguments online, try to understand where other people are coming from. Third, think of your information intake like a food diet. You got to make sure you're getting a balanced mix of sources and perspectives. And finally, maybe the most powerful tool you have, the pause button. Just before you share something, stop and ask yourself, who made this and why?
Look, algorithms aren't going anywhere. They're going to keep shaping our digital lives. But they do not have to be prisons. By understanding how they work, and just as importantly how we work, we can start to actually see the walls around us. And once you see them, you can choose to look over them. So the question I want to leave you with is this. What unseen walls are shaping your reality, and what's your first step to seeing what's on the other side?